My name is Michelle Leah, and I am the Assistant Director for Professional Development in the Greeley Center for Catholic Education in the School of Education. And I'm going to be co-teaching the ELPS 465 Interdisciplinary Educational Leadership Cross-Cultural Methods to Advance Justice. So the main objectives for this course are really to be looking at our own identities and being self-critical and reflective there, but then also looking forward to who we want to be in our future lives after our degree. So who do we want? How do we want to be a person for others? How do we want to be the best school psychologist, higher education person, instructional coach, educational leader? A typical day starts usually about 7 a.m. because it gets hot and it stays hot, so we want to get up and get going. We gather together in the lobby of the JFRC. We walk to the bus stop for the 990 bus, which is about a quarter mile. We pile on the bus, push our way on, and take that bus to the end, to Piazza Cavour, where there's a lovely cafe. We have a quick breakfast, and then we take another bus to our first site, and we will plan to go to 2 sites a day and plan to be finished by noon. And the plan is that, but sometimes things don't always work out that way, but the hope is to be done by noon. So I am always looking at life from the lens of a teacher. So I'm thinking about what it is to be a teacher, leader, instructional coach, reading specialist, and now a member of higher education. So when we are at sites, I'm thinking about how this is impacting me personally, but then how I also am thinking about how I can tell other teachers and educators to use that information. Being on the sites is really helpful in that regard because you really can be thoughtful about how all of your past experiences and how that brings you to your next step. The other thing that I think I feel is helpful from my perspective is that I taught this class last summer, and I think that having taught it and being at a lot of the sites, I think that I kind of know what to anticipate, and I also know what feelings I felt, and so I can ask good questions to people to help them reflect. I think everyone benefits from going to a city you've never been to. I think everyone benefits from going to a city you've been to but you haven't been there in a while. Cities are living creatures, they change and ebb and flow. So being somewhere where you don't know the language, you're not necessarily familiar wholly with the public transportation, the language, it really causes you to exercise your empathy muscle so that you can really feel what it's like to be there, and to take that a step further, thinking about how when we welcome people into our schools who maybe their native language isn't English, that can be a really beneficial thing. I also think that as Americans, a lot of us, especially if we can afford to take a graduate class, we live kind of cushy lives. So we go from air-conditioned spot to air-conditioned spot. We can take a car or an Uber. We can order Uber Eats. So there are a lot of ways that this is kind of roughing it a little bit. We intentionally take public transportation. We intentionally are walking between sites. So I think that all of that really helps you reflect on yourself as a person, and then obviously also as your future self. For a higher ed student, I think that you're both experiencing this city as a student yourself, but always looking at how you might be the leader of the group and the leader of the class. And there are a lot of logistics, as Wendy Threadgill knows very well, that are involved in trying to get a group of students from point A to point B. So in our Teach Us sessions, they're all about the logistics, but then also the history and teaching the group. So you have to do both. So you have to get people where they need to go, but you also have to teach them about that site. So it's the both and, which I think that seems to be what higher education is partly about. So it's going to seem funny to say this first, but one of the big expectations is there's a very physical part of this class. So we get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, which for a lot of educators is no big deal, but then we're out and about for a good 5 hours, walking sometimes 5 miles in the 95-degree heat. And so it's really important for people to be ready for that. And if you're someone like many of us are, who go from an air-conditioned car to an air-conditioned air-conditioned house, air-conditioned car, air-conditioned workplace, then you may want to do a trial run of what it's like to be out in the sun in your comfortable shoes with your water bottle and walking around, and what bag you're carrying and how heavy that is. So that part of it is real, and it's a really important part of that, the expectations for this class. But then for the more cerebral things, it's to be open and open-minded and reflective and thoughtful and honest. And while you don't have to share your whole life story, we really want you to be able to reflect and share your thoughts at each site. So I don't know if it's hidden, but I definitely think it's a gem. I really love the Basilica of San Clemente. I think that it is, in some ways, a metaphor for Rome, because it's on its surface is a beautiful, lovely place, church, but then there are literally layers of things below it, churches below it, and I feel like Rome is sort of like that. It's very complex, and there are lots of parts to it, and it is, there's always something to explore, and I think that's why I love it. Well, I hate to say it, but the food is so good. The pizza, the gelato, the cacio e pepe, the pastries, the coffee. There's always something delicious to eat. And when you walk 5 miles a day, it's okay to have a little bit of something sweet. I love that everywhere you look or walk, it relates to history, and you can't get away from it in a good way. And then related to that everything is really related to art and music, and there's this really deep love of both of those things by the Italians, and so it's hard to not fall in love with Michelangelo or Raphael while you're there. We're really excited to start ELPS 465, mostly because we're excited to meet everyone. The best part of the course, honestly, is the people and being all together and exploring together and exploring ourselves and how we can be a person for others.